I've just realized that I've never made a video like this, so today I will. And this is a video all about me, and I just want to let you know some of the things I like and some of the things I don't like, and let's go. Well, I'm fluent in English, obviously, and a little bit of Cantonese. My background is that I was born in Hong Kong and I moved to Australia when I was about 7 or 8 years old. And I used to speak Cantonese all the time to my family, so I am fluent in Cantonese mainly. I cannot write or cannot read a lot of Cantonese or Chinese because I was just never at that level of education when I moved here, and I never really kept it up. But yes, I can definitely carry a Cantonese conversation. I am pretty useful when I'm at work for this reason, because the staff can ask me to translate for the patients. However, I don't know any of the medical terms. So I can ask them if they have pain or they need to go to the toilet or if they're hungry, but I don't know specific medical terms in Cantonese. So for example, I don't know what a cardiac stent is in Cantonese. I don't know what a thoracotomy is in Cantonese, but yes, I can carry a normal everyday conversation in Cantonese. When I was first growing up, there was no option to get a Mac because Macs were so much more expensive than PC. I remember looking with envy at people who were able to play a thing called Castle Wolfenstein on their Mac, and I never had one of those. I always have had a PC. Remember when I was younger, this would age me now, but there was one time when I think as a resident, that I went to a midnight launch of Windows XP or Windows 98 at Harvey Norman. So I went there straight after work, but I was always a PC person. But since I've become financially more independent, I am definitely a Mac person. I just find the operating system much easier to use, and yes, Mac person. Similarly, I am an iOS person because it meshes so well with all my Mac stuff. However, I'm really envious of people who are able to have that folding Samsung phone. So I would give anything for Tim Cook and Apple to release a folding iPhone, because I think that would just be absolutely, completely, 100% awesome. I don't fancy much about the Android OS because I just find it not as smooth and not as trouble-free as iOS, but I do really like the folding phones, and unfortunately at this time they're only available for Android, which is a bummer. It's a good question. I don't like traveling when it's boiling hot because I just find it really uncomfortable that you're having to sweat like a pig. I've done a lot of travel in Asia during the summer months, and it's absolutely stifling. Imagine being on a vacation where you're trying to do fun stuff and it's like 36 degrees and 99.9% humidity the entire time. So every time you walk out of the hotel or out of a mall, you start sweating like a pig. You have a shower, and as soon as you get out of the shower, you're sweating like a pig. So that's not enjoyable. But on the other hand, going somewhere which is so cold isn't ideal either. I mean, unless you want to actually see snow, because when it's so cold, there's a lot of other impacts. It makes you have to carry loads more stuff. You have to bring all these coats, and also travel plans get delayed and cancelled and postponed because flights get cancelled because of ice and snow. So it's not ideal. But I prefer to be 20 degrees, 22 degrees, 18 degrees, something around there. I don't like extreme temperatures when I travel. Well, I'm not much of a beach person. I do like the beach, and this little one likes the beach too. But mountains have their own benefits because it's nice and cozy. You can get a little cabin, you can have a nice little fire and roast marshmallows and just be snug. Whereas you go to a beach, it's basically outdoors. I don't like getting burnt. I don't do all that much swimming. So probably mountains, but I don't mind either. Well, our family has both dogs and cats, and we've always had dogs and cats, but as you can tell, even though Oreo right now is more interested in other stuff, dogs, definitely dogs. I kind of like both. I mean, just like everybody else, our tastes vary from time to time. There's some days that I like sweet stuff, some days I like savory stuff. But in general, if you were to ask me, what would be like your death row meal, it would definitely be something savory. It would be something like fried chicken, because fried chicken is probably my most favorite food. I do like ice creams. I do like really nice cakes. I will eat chocolate, but I don't eat a lot of chocolate because it's not my favorite. But yeah, definitely if I had only one option, savory or sweet, I would definitely pick savory. Living in Sydney, it's probably okay to do either for a lot of stuff, but my preference is definitely to drive. Yes, I know it's more of a hassle. You have to look for parking and it costs money in terms of fuel or charging or parking and all that kind of stuff. And whilst you're on public transport, you get to actually do a lot of stuff. I'm sometimes envious of people who commute to work by public transport because you get to sit there and read a book or watch a movie or something like that. But when you're driving, you obviously have to pay attention to the road. But I just prefer the solitude of being able to sit in the car and not be around people and not have people coughing, spluttering all over you during your commute to work, I must say. So definitely car more than public transport. Well, I get motion sickness, so all of those are bad. Like, I don't like planes, but I do realize that if you don't fly on a plane, you don't get to go anywhere outside of Australia. So, no, I don't like planes, but I'm prepared to go on a plane. I get really stressed when I go on a plane, so I like to be able to pre-allocate my seats. I like to get there in plenty of time, just so that I'm not rushed. My parents used to work for an airline, so we used to get cheap airline flights. But the problem with that is we were always on standby. So the airport was always a drama. We always used to have to bolt from the check-in to the gate. Everything was last minute. Sometimes our flights got cancelled and it was super stressful and I hated it. But I realized that it's important to be able to fly on a plane. So yeah, planes are not my favorite. I don't mind going on road so much, but I do get car sick. So if you ever take me on a car trip for an extended period of time, especially somewhere windy like the mountains, please let me sit in the front or let me drive. Otherwise, I'm likely to puke in your car. And boats is definitely a no-no because I get really seasick and I can't even handle the Manly ferry half the time. So no, I have no current plans of wanting to go, for example, on like a cruise because I'm pretty sure I would spend the entire trip being sick in the room. So I don't think that would be too much fun at all. You know, it's really weird. Like, I know that resorts are cool because you just get to lie around, eat buffet and swim and be out in the sun, but I also like big cities. Maybe it was because I was raised in a big city like Hong Kong, but I actually like the hustle bustle. I like the fact that you can access a lot of stuff. I like going shopping. I like people. I like to photograph and video cityscapes. So yeah, my preference is probably city rather than kind of beachside resorts and things like that. But I'm okay with either as long as it's enjoyable, as long as everybody's having fun. I don't think it really matters that much. I love sneakers and I've always loved sneakers and I like cool sort of a little bit wacky fashions as well. So I don't always like the basic standard white sneaker, although recently I've been really into just plain white sneakers. But my two favorite brands right now are Hoka and On Clouds or On Running, and they've been great. I like Nikes as well, but the thing about Nike is that when you buy the shoes, you've got to buy the decent ones. So really cheap budget, you know, the $69 to $100 shoes. I actually find that their soles really crap and I don't like them. So you do get what you paid for. But right now, yeah, my favorites are Hoka and On Clouds. You don't even have to ask that question. Disney's always been my favorite. I don't really know that it's made a huge difference that Disney bought Star Wars and Marvel because I love Disney before any of that stuff. Disneyland's always been my favorite theme park. And despite what everybody thinks, I've actually only been to 3 out of the however many. I've only been to Hong Kong, LA, and Orlando was quite a long time ago. I've never been to Shanghai. I've never been to Paris. And I basically don't remember Walt Disney World in Orlando because it was like 25, 30 years ago. I really think that you don't need to ask because Disney is definitely my favorite. This is interesting. I've made a lot of videos about different cameras, different accessories, and it does fluctuate from time to time. When we were doing wedding photography, my favorite brand was the Sony mirrorless because they have such great autofocus. And when paired with the appropriate lighting and the lenses, they deliver unmatched quality in images. I've tried all the other brands, Canon, Nikon, Fujifilm. They're all great as well. But in terms of bulky gear, I think my preference would still right now be Sony. But recently I've been really into all these action cameras. So Insta360 and DJI. I've had GoPros in the past. They're great too, but I don't tend to use them a lot. And right now I'm filming on the Insta360 X5. I am using the Insta360 Go 3S and the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. These are my current favorite cameras. Action cameras, small, portable, rugged, cool effects, especially with things like this 360 camera, although I'm only shooting in flat profile with a single lens right now. But definitely action cameras at the moment are my favorites. I follow a number of sports and I get very easily frustrated by the fact that none of them right now are doing very well. In terms of Australian sports, I do like cricket, although I watch cricket much less than I used to. In terms of winter sports, the NRL, which is the National Rugby League, and my favourite team is the Sydney Roosters, who are also not doing that well. My favourite players in the NRL right now, probably, it's hard to think of it because my favourite player in the last few years who no longer plays for the Roosters was Jared Warrior-Hargreaves, because he was just tough. And I know that everyone thought that he was rough and that he was making a lot of really dodgy tackles and stuff like that, but he was my favourite player. Right now, it's just good just to see them do okay. They've lost a lot of players this year, so I'm not expecting them to get too far in this competition, but Sydney Roosters are my favourite. In terms of other sports, New York Yankees have always been my favourite baseball team. It's not so much of you're only going for a team that always wins, because recently they haven't always won and they've had a lot of problems, and I know that they spend a lot of money, just like the Roosters, on players, and a lot of them don't live up to potential. But I do really like the New York Yankees. I used to like that era with, Derek Jeter, Jorge Posada, those kind of guys. But right now, they're not doing too bad. They've got Judge, and they've got Max Fried, and they've got Carlos Rodon, who are doing really well. They need a closer, though, because this Williams guy, I don't think that at this point it can be trusted. But it was like Clay Holmes last year. He did well, and then when the big situations come up, he couldn't handle it. So let's hope that they continue to do well. I'm pretty sure they'll make the playoffs, but I don't know whether they'll be able to win the World Series, because there's these other teams which are pretty good, in case you haven't heard, called the Dodgers, and they have Shohei, and also Freddie Freeman, who kills everybody. Other sports I like the WNBA, and you've probably also seen in a previous video that I have a Caitlin Clark rookie card. I'm definitely an Indiana Fever fan. Right now she's injured, and so is Sophie Cunningham, and right now they're not doing that well. But the season's early, and they've got, I think, who's a really underrated and under the radar player, and that's Lexi Hull. And I think she's basically been carrying the team right now. Hopefully better things will happen when CC comes back. The thing is, it seems like everyone's picking on CC. I don't know why. She's a good player, but the refs seem to be like taking, I don't know, I don't want to say it, but the refs seem to be reffing two different games every time I see the Fever play, which is, I think, unfair, but I'm hoping that the Fever do really well. It's going to be a kind of a funny year this year, because assuming that they don't continue with a spate of injuries, I think they'll go pretty close to getting to the playoffs and making a run at the title. But the question remains, are they going to re-sign Lexi Hull for next year, because this is the last year of her contract? I really hope that they do. Other sports I like the Matildas. I'm not really interested in like the Socceroos or anything, but I like the Matildas, and my two favourite players are Ellie Carpenter and Kyra Cooney-Cross. I hope that they do well as well, because Australia needs like a good story, and I think the Matildas, they did so well. It was the last year where they nearly won everything. They've gone through some hard times as well, but I'm hoping that the Matildas do well. As most of you know, I drive a Tesla right at the moment. I know that there's a lot of controversy about what's happening with Tesla and what Elon is doing, but however, politics aside, personalities aside, Teslas are probably the most technologically advanced car I've ever had the pleasure of coming across. And it's just a pleasure to drive. I don't know whether I would continue to get another Tesla on the next one, because some of the other companies are catching up. One thing that annoys me with Tesla is that they still don't have Apple Play. Can you believe it? After all these years, they don't have Apple Play. You can't put Waze on it. Waze was one of my favorite apps because it allows you to have user input as to certain road traffic situations, and you can't do that on a Tesla, which is disappointing. But the fact that you don't have to queue up every Sunday afternoon to fill up your car before you have it ready for a week at work, and the fact that you can charge at home, and the fact that it's cheaper to charge than to fill up the car, are some of the major perks of having an electric car. I really hope and am looking forward to the day where the range gets up to 1,000 kilometers, because that will take away all that range anxiety when you go on vacation, because having to find superchargers in the middle of nowhere can be annoying, especially during holiday periods, because some of them are really packed and you have to line up. And I don't like having to line up, because if you have to line up when you refill a petrol car, it could be 10-15 minutes in the queue. But if you have to line up at a supercharger, every car charges for a minimum of 20 minutes. So if there's a long queue, you're stuck for ages, and you just don't want to run out and not be able to use your car and be stuck in certain places. And on that note, I hate the fact that all or most of the new cars don't have a spare tire, which really annoys me, because if you ever have a flat, which I've had before, super annoying. So hopefully the car manufacturers will fix that somehow. I know it's a space thing, I know it's a cost thing, and I know that when you have a battery in the bottom of your car, you've got to be careful how you jack the car up, but having no spare tire, pain in the rear end. I've lived in a house so long now. I used to live in apartments, I used to live in townhouses, and no question, living in a house, space, you get separation from your neighbors, you don't have common walls, you don't hear everything that happens, and you get more privacy. So definitely houses over apartments if you can afford it. On my daily commute, I prefer to listen to podcasts because I feel like, yes, music's cool, it gets you relaxed and you can sing along, but I feel like with podcasts you can actually learn something whilst you're driving, which is always good. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts about content creation, I've been listening to motivational podcasts, which I find, yeah, what they do what they're supposed to do, and that is to motivate me. Music is cool too. I'm having trouble right now with my Spotify. I don't have a premium Spotify account, and Tesla recently got rid of the Spotify car account thing, which makes picking songs a real pain. I don't want to pay extra because I do have Apple Music, but we've only got a single account, so if I use it, the people at home can't use it. So yeah, it's a bit annoying, but I think podcasts more than music. It varies. It really depends what's on. We have so many streaming services that it's ridiculous, and half the time we're still flipping around because I can't find anything to watch. Netflix, they have good series and they have a lot of Korean stuff that I like, but the problem is you have to read the subtitles, and when you're tired, I don't read subtitles. Disney has all its traditional movies. How do I feel about them going for all these other series now, like The Simpsons and stuff? I don't really care for it, but it's okay. It's part of the service. I have Amazon Prime, so you get that Prime Video thing, which occasionally gives you a movie. Foxtel, we've had that forever. It has some good stuff, but again, there's a lot of repetition and there's a lot of stuff that you really don't want to watch, and you just wonder why you're paying all this streaming thing. To be fair, I spend most of my time watching actually YouTube videos rather than streaming services, but if I had to pick one that I'd watch more than anyone else, probably Netflix. Definitely relaxing holiday. I'm a chicken. I don't like adventure. I don't like jumping out of planes. I don't like having things where I end up under the water in a shark cage so I can look at a shark. None of that stuff excites me because I feel like I'm going to die and I'm going to be really scared. So definitely a relaxing holiday. Holidays where you can just sit around, you can look at stuff, you can take photos, you can do my favorite thing, which is vlogging, look at sights, look at pretty landscapes, cityscapes. Definitely my preference over adventurous, dangerous, risky, life-threatening holidays. The only ones I really have ever collected in the recent times is Pokemon. I like Pokemon cards. I like the thrill of pulling something really cool, but they're so hard to get now that I haven't really opened a pack for many months. Lorcana's pretty cool, but I just don't know that they're that popular. They're really easy to get. They come out with new sets every couple of months, so that's cool as well. And I should like them more than I do because it's a Disney thing, but I don't. I occasionally dabble in other cards. I recently bought a couple of packets of Aussie NRL cards, and they're pretty mediocre. Maybe it's just because I didn't pull anything good, but it didn't excite me, the fact that you can't get all the players and it's only like 5, 6 players per team. I remember back when I was a kid and I collected sports cards like footy cards. You used to be able to collect every single player on every team, and I just feel like if you're going to collect stuff, you want to collect all of them, and having only half the team or something like that is not ideal. But I do like trading cards. If I want specific cards, I tend to just buy them because my luck of pulling them from a pack is pretty low. And I'm even prepared totally to buy a PSA 10 as long as it's a reasonable price, because I know that they hold their value, and I know it's something that's important. If I like the actual card, I have no issue spending $50 on a card if I can afford it, because I know I'm going to hold on to it forever. If I have the money to invest, I always prefer the stock market just because I know stuff about it. I don't know enough about real estate, and my fear always is that you've got such a large chunk of money which is always tied up for extended periods of time. Historically, I believe that the returns are quite similar, and the fact that you have to deal with maintenance, you have to deal with potential tenants, and you have to deal with repairs and upgrades and stuff. No, that's not for me. I'm happier with shares where you can actually make active decisions. I like to be an active investor. I don't like to just leave stuff forever, because I know that shares, like everything else, comes in seasons, and I don't want to be holding stuff when you clearly know that they're on a downtrend. So I like a lot of technical analysis. The recent years I've been super into shares because now I have found a cheap ability to short the market, which allows me to hedge my longer term investments, because I know that even though I want to hold it for a long time, I know that right now that this particular share is having trouble, and I want to be able to protect the downside, and that's when I tend to short. I don't use shorts as a gambling method, but I just use it to protect my investments, and that's why I like shares much more than real estate, because you can invest with small amounts of money, you can move the cash around as you please, and you're not kind of tied up to this thing for such a long time, and you don't have all the other added responsibilities, like I said, of tenants and stuff like that. Well, I like both. Sometimes I like being at home because I like to be able to do my own stuff, but sometimes when I'm at home I feel like I'm obligated to do stuff, and sometimes you just want to relax. So going out sometimes is better than staying at home. On the other hand, I don't like just wandering aimlessly. Like, for example, I don't like just going to the mall, because I don't like the fact that you're just wandering aimlessly thinking that you want to buy something, but you actually don't, because you have no plans of buying anything, and then you get a bit annoyed by the time you're finished because you get home, you have nothing, and you've wasted 4 hours walking around the mall. So it really depends. Recently I've liked being outdoors a lot because I like getting the fresh air, but it just varies. Sometimes at home, sometimes going out. It varies also. I like Chinese food, so nothing can beat a good sweet and sour pork in my opinion, but occasionally I like pizza. I find that the pizza chains, they're just far too oily and far too fatty, and even though they taste nice for a while, I feel a bit ill afterwards. I like fried chicken, but again, if I eat too much of it, I feel ill. I like some sushi. I always love sushi, and sometimes I like kebabs. I like Indian food as well, but it's got to be good. It's got to be nice and hot. I don't like kind of bland Indian curry food, so I just got to be particular about it. I try not to eat takeaways too much because, as you know, it's bad for you. It's high in salt, high in sugar, high in fat, high in calories, all those bad things. But yeah, if I had to pick one right now, it's probably going to be takeout Chinese. I've always liked weight training, so that's my preference. I don't belong to a gym anymore, so I just try to use free weights at home. I do like cardio in the sense that I like walking. I like going on a stationary bike. I don't, and I've never been a great runner because one is I'm too unfit to run, and two, it hurts my knees and I don't get very far. So in terms of running, I don't think I do it long enough that it becomes a actual good cardio activity, because I just don't think I burn enough calories before I die. My biggest weakness these days when it comes to health and fitness is that I'm very inflexible. I have a lot of trouble stretching. I try to stretch much more than I used to, but I'm super inflexible. I'm always slouched over, my shoulders are always tight, my neck's always tight, so that's what I'm working on for the rest of this year. But resistance is my preference, but sometimes you can get lazy when you do resistance because you're not actually really pushing yourself and you're just going through the motions. At least with cardio, you're moving. With weights, you can just do 5 reps and just sit there and talk to someone for the next 5 minutes, which is not great for anything apart from time wasting, and time wasting is one of the things I hate doing. So good resistance exercise over cardio anytime, but cardio, I recognize the importance of it and I try to get that in every day if I can also. So I think that's the end of this video. I think now you know a little bit more about me. Oreo's trying to sneak out of here so he can go grab some lunch. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next week in another video. Bye.